Hi, everybody. I've got a really fun project for us tonight where we can use a lot of different beads. It's a two-part class. It's a necklace will become a necklace over the next two classes. But for tonight, I was going to focus on two different techniques for wrapping to create a pendant and to create a focal connector. And so they're really simple techniques and they can be done with lots of different types of wire. But tonight I was going to use some German style wire in 18 gauge and 22 gauge, along with some artistic wire in a really cool, like kind of twisted. It's easier to see it in the gold color, I believe, on my camera, but the artistic 20 gauge twisted wire. So that's what we'll be playing with today with some great beads. We've got all kinds of beads on the mat. And I'll go ahead and, yeah, thank you so much. So this is a couple versions going here of the project and the things that you can use. The one I just held up, here's a close-up view of that. There's the connector. I think that's the back side and this is the front. It can be either way you like. And then this is one that I love doing, this little spiral wrap. I get asked about it a lot, so I thought, what a fun wire class we could do. We could do a class doing that. So that's one idea. And I think I saw in the waiting room, I think I saw Pat in there. I want to give a shout out to our student Pat. She contacted me about a class we have coming up that uses the tiny beads from this strand. We've been using a lot of these crystal rondelle strands that come with 4 sizes. The class we have coming up on May 21st uses the tiny ones, the 4mm, and it uses a lot of them. You'll probably need to buy 3 or 4 of these in order to have enough of the little rondelles, and then you can have all these to use. So I thought, well, why don't there'll be more projects, but here's one idea of what you can do with those larger beads. And so I'll talk to that, and here's a cute sample to turn them into earrings, all using the techniques we're going to go over tonight. So I'm going to get started because there's a lot to cover. Let me get these out of the way. So the first thing we're going to do is create the connector. And the connector is really easy. It's going to start with some 18 gauge wire. And we're going to turn it into a form. And this form can take the shape that's, almost like a horseshoe, or it can be, a little bit smaller. It can also be flatter, more rainbow shaped. So it's kind of a freestyle, what you like to use technique. And so to do that, the tools you'll need just for this step. I'm going to probably go over the tools kind of step by step because there's more than a few of them, but this is a bale forming plier. And I like to use those because it makes my, little loops here uniform. But you can use Rondelles pliers. And if you're using Rondelles pliers and you want a little trick for how to get those to be uniform in shape, a lot of people take a Sharpie and they just draw a little line kind of somewhere along there that represents what size loop you want to form. And that can also be a way to achieve some consistency without having to go get another tool. So there's 2 ideas for that. And then we will probably be using off and on the other kind of pliers. So chinos, flush cutters, and the like. Okay, so I'm going to start with making this component. Got the 18 gauge wire here. And the cool thing about the way that it is sold at Michael's is it comes in this tube, and when you get it, it has, here's another version with, it has these little like plastic wraps on it, so it keeps that round shape for you. And I'm going to use that to my advantage for creating my connector because it's already kind of formed into this shape. So if I need to encourage it to form more, I'm going to show you a trick to use an empty spool. We all have these laying around, right? These empty wire spools. If you're a stitcher like me, you got lots of them. We can use this to help us form if need be. So before you cut it, just bring it up here and give it a pull. So I'm pushing pretty hard here with this hand. And I'm going to pull it around. And just crossing it over just to give it a little more And another trick, sometimes if I have the time, you can even put this on it and let it sit for a while, but it really doesn't even need it. It's already in such a perfect round shape that I feel like it works. So what you'll want to do is trim it. And I'm thinking mine will be, you know, about a half moon. So I'm going to go right about there. And then I come over here and flush cut this side. And yeah, I've got a pretty good shape there. So I am using these bale forming pliers, and I'm using the smallest setting. I'm going to flip those around so that the small side is facing away from me. I'm going to grab the end here and then just roll it forward. Make sure everybody can see that pretty well. And once it makes contact, you should have a really nice looking loop there. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And I forgot to mention when I did my cutting, flush cutters have one side that's kind of in and another side that's totally flat. And you want to take that totally flat side and make that the side that you cut so that this is flush. So this is flatter, or flatter-ish, I guess is what I'm going for. So it's a little bit like that. So the same thing, I'm just getting it in between the tool here. And I'm going to roll it forward. And there it is, one of those little connectors. And so if you are a wire wizard and you've got all the tools already and you have a block and a nylon hammer, feel free to hammer this. That is a best practice and it's a great thing to do. Truth, I did not hammer mine. I saw my son's eyes light up when I got that hammer out. I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to introduce him to the hammer right now. So my littlest is 5 and he went to town excited when he saw that. So like, yeah, that's going back in the garage. So I didn't actually even hammer these and they're just fine. They work great. And I made a bunch all just like that. And it's just pretty sturdy wire. It's the, you know, the German style, so it holds its shape really nicely. But definitely if you have handy the hammer and the block, go for it. Just give it a little tap around and just give it a little bit of work hardening. So I'm going to switch over to my artistic wire now. I think in the gold would be easier to see.
Danielle, it's Carmi. Just a quick comment, because you mentioned hardening. And would you just let some of the new people know what the hammering would do?
Yes, yeah. So with wire, if you subject it to, you know, strain, motion, hammering, you work hard in it. And really what's happening is you're just putting all the electrons closer together, I guess is what's happening there. But it's just a good practice for making things a little less likely to bend. Because, you know, if I wanted to right now, I could pull this apart and bend it. But when you think about your jewelry, I mean, how often do you subject your jewelry to a pull test? I mean, you're making it, you know, for you to wear, and it's somewhat delicate. And also when you add these loops to it, it makes it just a little bit stronger. But definitely, like if you're, you know, if you're professionally making jewelry, this is your first time working with wire, you know, get the feel of it and don't worry so much about all this extra stuff. Add on all that, because it can be so much data all at once if you're just starting out with a wire project. But later, or now if you've already tried it, a block looks like, Michaels has them, they're a square brick. They're very, very heavy. And they are usually inside of like a little rubber setting. And you put it on your work surface, and then you get this hammer. It's a nylon jaw hammer, or not jaw, like nylon jaw pliers. It has a nylon, solid nylon, I guess, and you just tap gently on your piece, and it doesn't mar it because it's the nylon one. Chasing hammers will leave little marks. That can be pretty too, something fun to play with. But yeah, that's what work hardening is. Same thing when you got a jump ring and you're moving the jump ring back and forth. It gets stronger every time you do that. And so that was my understanding, or how it was explained to me long ago. I hope I got that right. But for the purposes of what we're doing here today, this worked okay for me without doing that step. But I don't want to recommend against it because it is a best practice. So definitely try it if you've got that handy.
Thanks, Danielle. Appreciate it.
So this is 20 gauge, and now this is artistic wire. So German style wire versus artistic. German style is harder. You see up here it says somewhere on here it says medium temper. So it's already been a little bit work hardened for you. So it's going to hold its shape a lot more. This wire is not. This wire is soft. You can move it with your fingers, and that's going to really help us out for what we're going to do here with our piece. And so as far as beads go, you can use any beads you want. And I'm trying to think of what I feel like using tonight. Earlier, I was having a really fun time using these colors, but I think for the purpose of the camera tonight, it might make sense to go for something more like turquoise. So that's what I'm pulling out now. And any shape will do. I still have the original strand. These are fun. Here's my big ones. So I'll pull some big ones in there. So in the handout, it says to cut about 20 inches, 20 to 25 inches. And that really depends on the length of the connector that you've created. I found on this one that 21 inches was more than enough. On one like this, you'd probably want to go for 25. It's got more space. So I'll probably cut about 20 inches here for this one. And so for me, that's my mat times 2. Got the flush cutters here. This wire is really forgiving. I like playing with this one because you can with your fingers mold it and shape it, and it's easy to fix it if you make a boo-boo with it. But what you don't want to do is pull it with nylon jaw pliers, because this one, when you do that, it'll actually undo the braid. But we're not using those today, so it's going to work out great. So there's lots of different ways to get started. So this is a very common technique. It's called it's just a wire wrap, really. But I start mine in kind of an easy for me way. I take one end of the wire, get it underneath your connector here, and put about an inch over here on this side. I'm going to get into the center a little better here. How is this color? Is this easy to see? And Matt's very busy. I'm going to get less busy here. I'm hoping this is all right.
We definitely can see.
You can see. Great. Okay. Awesome. All right. So I've got about an inch hanging out on the inside here. And then I'm pushing down on the connector. So I'm pushing down on it so that it's staying flush pushed into the mat, and using that to bend it forward. And I'm just pushing it down. So there's step 1. And how that looks like a little closer is just bent over the connector like that. And I'll take this short end and bring it around the back. So there's one wrap. I'm going to do the same thing again and put it back down. And bring that wire forward. And it is loose on the bar right now, on the connector bar, and that's okay. You actually want it to be able to move. That's the other great thing about this technique. It's bending it back. And 3 times is great. 4 is even better. I've done 3 there. I'm probably going to stop with 3. That looks good. And I'm going to trim this. So my back side is here, and my top side is going to be this front side. You can decide that as you're working, but in my case, I want to make my cut at the back. So there's that. And now this is an optional step, but if you want to, you can flatten it now. Take some chain nose pliers and just come along here and flatten that down. It doesn't have to be perfect, just, get it to where it's not going to be sticking up in a way that would hurt a sweater, for example. Like if you're wearing a sweater and you don't want it to catch. So there's that. I'm just going to grab a bead. So we've got a lot of working length here. It's really long. And that can be a little confusing, so just go slow. I always tell myself to slow down so I don't waste wire. And I'm just grabbing a bead. I didn't really think about what size, or you can use any size you want. You can even use seed beads. I'll show you guys a seed bead in a minute. All right, so there's the back side. It's got the bead coming up to the connector, front side. And so just hold it in your hand, whatever way is comfortable for you, left, right. I think I alternate. And I just want to bring, I'm going to work it this way. Yeah, I think that's the way I do it. So I take my index finger, my thumb, and I just kind of hold that connection there. And I'm holding the bead too. I'm going to bring this wire down, bending it down and bringing it behind. And then you just want to wrap it around once and go one more time. And there's a lot of extra wire flying right now, but let's see if you guys can see that. I just wrapped it around twice and the bead's just going to sit there. And you can make it sit on the inside or the outside. I tend to like it to sit on the outside, but it is possible to have it sit on the inside. I think outside's a little easier. So there's one done, and it'll move on you while you're working. So that's the cool thing about this technique, is it's all fixable as you work. If you change your mind, if you want to see it look, you know, inside versus the outside of the connector, you can just try it and see what you like. I'm going to switch to another bead that's a little bit bigger. I'm just getting that wire out of the way. So now when you bring your next bead down, it may or may not be the right size. So you got to move the wire out a little bit. I'm trying to show you guys both sides. So there's the front and there's the back. So again, I'm just pinching it. Here's my index fingers holding the bottom, thumb holding the top. I'm holding pretty tight, and there's wire going everywhere a bit. Just gonna fold it forward. So just like that. And just bring it around once. And one more time. And it can still move on the frame. And that's handy later in case you want to stretch it out or center it or do anything like that. So I'm just going to keep going. Maybe get one more size bead here. I did one of these that was really freestyle once that had a lot of different kind of beads on it. I think it even had some like top drilled leaves. And you can use any bead. There's sky's the limit. So this is the back again. Got the bead down there, and I'm just moving the wire over till it lets it sit next to it. And I tend to like to work, I think I work in this direction. You'll have to play with it and see what's comfortable for you. Yeah, I think I prefer this way. I was going to try the other direction just to see, but I'm still preferring to hold it this way. So I've got the front side facing me. This is my index finger and my thumb. I'm just going to bend it back. And go around 2 times. So is that making sense for everyone? Is there any questions about, I'm going to just keep going and get to the other side and show you how to finish it?
I think you're good, Danielle.
Yeah, okay, cool. I think I've got lots of folks in class tonight that have done some wire.
You have. They would love it if you could just show them the back side one more time.
Oh, yeah. And you know, right now it's moving pretty freely on this connector. When I get to the end, I'm going to show you a way to make it stop wiggling. which is basically I just come along with chain nose pliers and I just give it a pinch in all the spots, but I don't want to do that yet because I may want to play with the position before I set it in stone like that. So it's wobbling a lot, it's moving, but I just keep going with it, right? There's that. And again, this wire it's loose, and there's a lot of it. I may have cut too much, but I'd rather cut too much than too little. It is possible to add. It is possible to add it if you get to the end and you're like, I need more. And the way that would be done is you would do one wrap and then start a new one and do 2 more wraps. And most people won't notice that there's 3 instead of 2. It doesn't change the look, and I've done that on pieces before and nobody's even noticed. So don't sweat that if you need to do that. And going around. Oops. Bead down. Okay, that's the back side there. This is really pretty with the gold. I don't know if that's coming across over the camera, but I put gold on silver with turquoise. That's a winning combination right there. All the things like I wouldn't have tried if I wasn't on Zoom, and now I'm like, that's so cool. I'm really glad I tried that. I'm doing a graduated pattern. I'm sticking to my same like routine here, where I go small, medium, big, medium, small. I'm just doing the same thing. Wrap that around. And you guys will probably notice it's getting a lot easier the further I go. It's just getting started is sometimes tricky. That's another big bead. I want this size. Bringing it behind just once, twice wrapped around. All right, what's next? Small. I'm gonna have fun picking up all these beads later. And I am keeping, each wrap in front of the one before it. Go to this one. There's that one, big one. So every time I'm just bending it behind and just looping around. Let's go down to this one. And so yeah, this technique is any bead, any size, any kind of connector. Even when you didn't make yourself, you could buy a connector and wrap on it. You could buy a loop, like a hoop, an earring hoop, and wrap on it. Same exact way. I think I'm going to get one more bead, but looking at it for symmetry, I started with a small bead, and I've got a small bead at my end over here. If I add another one, it's going to be a little off center. So I think I might want to actually just slide it down. So here's a cool thing you can do. I'm going to finish my wraps so I know I've got 3 over here, 2 here. I want to do one more, just so I know my height, right? Bring that back around the back. I'm going to trim that, get it out of the way. Flush cutters, the open sides on top. Clip that. And now I'm going to move it on the bar. Let's see here. How does that look? That looks pretty centered. So I'm going to go ahead and solidify this. And so to do that, And take your chain of pliers. I'm going to start with the end that I just finished here because I didn't push that end down. Get that one tucked. Pay extra attention to, if you're using the twisted wire, that it's got 2 strands braided together. You want to make sure you get both of those down. I see my other one there. It's tiny. It's kind of hard to see on here, but. And now all I'm going to do is I'm just going to come along and gently, now I'm not going to go crazy because this wire is really pretty, but when you smush it, it looks less nice. So I'm just going to gently just tap. And I'm being really gentle here, and I'm putting some pressure, but not enough to really go crazy. There we go. And this is the back side that I'm doing that with. All right. And there it is. So it's not wobbly anymore. Just a really pretty piece. And I like the gold so much that I'm kind of it's growing on me to use the back as the front, which you could totally do. There's no rule that says this has to be the front. So yeah, that's one way to make a really cool connector. There's lots of good ways to do it. And so next week, what we'll do, I'm about to move and show you guys this next, but where this is going to go is next week we're going to play with making really cool chains and other ways that you can just turn this into a really cool piece. These little gemstones came from the strand wall, and I think they're in the handout. In case anybody's wondering, they're just a striped agate, a little 6mm striped agate. And I just wrapped it on there. That's all I did. But how cool. Yeah, it looks so summer. And then I just played with beads. Any beads I had laying around, I just used them up here. So we'll talk about that next week. And we'll talk about this chain next week. But for now, I want to show you guys how to make another little interest pendant. So you can do like a layered look. And this is one of those techniques that can be done with any wire. I played around with it earlier. Here's one with 22 gauge German style. Here's one made with that same 20 gauge artistic twisted. So you can use a twisted for this, and that looks really neat. The earrings I made earlier, same thing. Put the agate on there, 22 gauge German style for that one. So how to do that, and this is a really versatile little trick. You can put a charm on it. So the way we start it is we start it by making a loop, and you have the option of covering that loop up completely so that it just looks like almost like a little knot, or you can leave it so that you can put a jump ring through it and add a little charm to it. So I'm going to bring my wire over. This is 22 gauge German style. And before I cut it, you'll want to think about, well, what beads am I going to use? You're going to want to cut a length that's 3 to 4 times the length of the stack of beads. So I'm going to choose some, I'm going to try to use the ones I used in the sample here. Those were these Hematite. Got one of those here. One of these really cool like Baroque pearls. Those are also called out in the handout. I'm going to use one of these faceted rounds. These are 10mm here. All right. So the way that this one was done is I did the Baroque pearl, the 10mm gemstone bead, and then that little hematite oval. And just stacked them like that. I'm going to do the same thing here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. And a little extra because, I don't know, I like to have extra in case I get flourishy with my wraps or something. And so here is a spot where you have a choice. Again, if you want to use your bail making pliers, go for it. Use the small setting. I'm going to demo it with a regular round nose, so you guys can see both of those options. And same thing we did before. We're going to pinch the end of the wire in between the tool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll forward, but I'm going to keep going and make a double coil. And I'm going to end where the coil is next to this, the wire, in plane with the wire. So just keep going. And when you get to this spot, this is a really good chance to pinch down the starting point. Almost to the top here. Okay, and so there's my starting point, and I'm putting it in plane with this wire. And it could be really hard to see that, but it'll be easier to see when I get the tool off. That's all I did. I just made a little coil at the end. It's doubled. And I'm going to start stringing. Start with the bottom of your bottommost bead. And so the 22 gauge is going through this pearl tightly, but it's working. So I'm good, but you do want to test your wire, make sure it fits your beads first, especially if you're using something natural like this. If you're using a regular glass bead, you won't have any issue, but it's just gemstones and particularly pearls. Bring that down. And there's that one. Okay, so we're going to do next is just make a wrapped loop at the top. So we're going to form this part. So back to those round nose pliers. And another little trick I think about a lot is, so here's my loop at the bottom. In case you wanted to add a charm, you probably want your top loop to be going facing the same direction, so that a jump ring down here would put that charm facing forward. So I'm taking some effort to notice where that is and mimicking it here at the top. And I'm just going to push it forward. These beads are going to spin for a little while. Don't worry about them just yet. Straighten that out. So bend that forward. Now bring your pliers up 90 degrees and bring that wire back around toward you until it's almost touching the bead, and then bring those out another 90 degrees. Bring the wire under it. So that's just a little wrap loop there at the top. And I've got a nice loop there. I'm going to switch to chain nose. I'm going to hold it in place so that it keeps its shape. I'm going to wrap around once, twice, and what I'm doing right now is I'm just straightening it out. There we go. And so now is where the fun part. We're going to go in front of this bead with this wire. So I just wrapped around twice and push the bead up against the wrap that you just made, and then bring that wire over the front of it. And sometimes it can help to set your tool down after that, because now you have something to hold on to. Go around in between the two beads. And now we're going to go in front of this one. There's that. And go around this section here. Go gentle here because it's a pearl. Around the front. And you get this pretty little wrapped effect. Really fun. And so now I'm at the bottom. If I wanted to put a jump ring on here and a charm, I might do it now, or I might at least try to leave some space so I can get that jump ring in. But for the purposes of this design, I was thinking it didn't need a charm. It's already a charm by itself. You know, with this, it was so small, I thought, it needs something, right? But this one just really doesn't. It speaks for itself. So I'm not going to worry about loop. I'm going to go ahead and just cover it up. And I made it kind of small anyway, so it should be easy to do, just wrapping around. And just keep going. And once you like the look of it, you can trim it. So getting my flush cutters here. And I think we have time to make more of these. So definitely we'll be able to show these things again. These are fast projects. This is the back. And I trimmed it here. You can see it's sticking up. It's not flush with the I'm going to hide it. I'm going to just push it underneath. I'm careful not to scratch my pearl though. And there it is, it's gone. The front looks really cool. And that's that. So all you would do now is throw a jump ring on top. And you can get a jump ring from like your findings. A findings pack is a great place to get a jump ring. Let me show you guys what those are. But the findings wall has tons of jump rings and all kinds of finishes. So if you're working with a different wire finish, you can find them there. I'm just grabbing one of these and switching to my square nose and those bent nose pliers. There's that. It's that lateral motion to open a jump ring and bring it back together. And this is that work hardening step we were talking about. And when you make that click, you've made contact with it. So it's kind of holding its shape under its own pressure there. So there's our little pendant for next week. And there's the connector we made. Some tangled over here. And so next week we'll introduce this finding and how to do different kinds of chain. And these chains have different mediums in them, so we'll talk about that. But those are basically the two techniques. So lots of extra time trying to figure out what
Danielle, I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
What would you do if you ran out of room to wrap at the bottom?
Oh, here at the bottom here?
Yeah.
Start
over. It's better to start over.
Well, I'm always trying not to waste my wire, and if I've got a wrap that I'm happy with, that happened to me on this one. And so you see, I've got almost, let me try to make this as focused as I can. I've got almost no wrap here. I don't know if that's easy enough to see, but I just wrapped it around one time and then I just tucked it in.
And it would probably hold it because it's wire.
Yeah, especially because it's German style. And then I came along with the chain nose pliers after that. And I really made sure it was pressed down.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, the 22 gauge, especially if you're doing 24, it might be a little more problematic, but 22 is going to be no problem.
And Danielle, because you already showed everyone how to make the pendant for next week's mixed media necklace, these are just perfect earrings.
They are.
While we're waiting, we can just make earrings.
Yeah, that was something I was playing with earlier when I was trying to think of how can we use 4 strands of these. And so, yeah, that was one of the ideas I had was let's just make tons of earrings. They're fast. They're perfect for if you're going to sell work that, just a whole bar of these. And yeah, they're just really gorgeous. And try with different wire. And I just really like this pendant. This one kind of grew on me. So I just threw it on ball chain. But if I was going to take more time, I would put a little seed bead chain on it. Speaking of seed beads, I didn't show how to do that. It's something I could show.
Danielle, if you could, the only question I didn't get you to answer tonight is you showed people how to make the bigger, rounder first example, but people want to know, how did you make the wire where it's only like this small half moon?
Oh, so like this one?
Yes, that's the shape they want to know how you made.
Oh, I took the, let's see, I'll show you on this one. Well, first of all, I cut it down. Let's turn this one into one. That would be good.
And Danielle, would you ever recommend using memory wire?
I don't want to say not to because I've never tried. I struggle with memory wire personally because my tools aren't strong enough for it. And I had a really nice pair of bale forming ones that I ruined using memory wire. So I think I need a refresher on memory wire myself to answer that properly. But yeah, I don't have the right cutters, I think. And
Okay.
yeah.
No, there's a couple people here tonight that do have memory wire, so they can experiment on their own.
Definitely, yeah. And if you've already got the tools and you know your way around memory wire, then I would say it's probably great because it's going to hold its shape. So why not, right? In theory, in my mind, sounds like it would totally work.
Okay.
And so I'm going to just make this one look like, I'm going to try and make it look like this one. So let's see. I need to have room to make my loop. So I'm coming up a little higher. If you're not wearing safety glasses, cover it up when you cut it, you know, just in case, you know, protect your eyes. Come across here. I'm eyeballing this, but yeah, so it really is just a matter of cutting it down. I don't think I formed it any differently, but you could. If you wanted to, you could just start kind of uniformly pulling it open.
I asked you that question on behalf of Seema, and she now says it totally makes sense. Thank you.
Oh, yay. Awesome. Okay. Thanks, Seema. It's a good question. So I'm just going to really quickly form this one again. Just bringing that front down. There's one side. I really love German style wire because it's just so easy to work with. It remembers what shape you put it in and stays there. And yeah. So there's that one. And then let's see. I didn't need nearly as much wire as I cut last time, so I'm cutting a little bit less here. But I thought I'll just demo maybe some seed beads with our extra time that we got, just for a few minutes. And
that would be great.
But holler if there's questions and if there's any other things you guys want to see. So again, I'm bringing this under about 1 inch, pushing down on it, fold forward, and then taking that short end behind the component, pushing down again, bring it up. I'm gonna do that one more time. It's so soft, I can just form it just like that. I'm gonna flip it around the back and just trim that. And my pliers, I'll move them over here. Just want to give that a little tuck to those little wires there. And it's still free to move mostly. Okay, so my seed beads are right here. These are size 6 seed beads, and they are the ones I used in this sample. I think they're in the handout too. It's the Retro Blue Mix, one of my favorites. It looks great with this turquoise colored Rondelles. But you could even just go seed bead all the way across, and that would look really neat too. I'm just going to pick up one bead and bring that down. And so it's just sitting here, and I do tend to work it in this direction. So kind of putting some pressure here, index finger, thumb, holding that down, just bringing it forward. This first step is always the hardest because it's just wiggly. We get there at the end and it's easier. Those were really far apart, my little wraps. So what I did is I took these chainless pliers and just brought them back together. If you find yourself needing to do that, just go for it. Let's see, let's go for this color. Bring that down. Again, I'm just going to pinch it, fold behind, wrap around twice. Doing that in just one motion, it's easier than stopping. one more. I always cut too much wire. Just always do. And there we go. So yeah, you just keep going along. Super easy technique. Works on any form. That's really pretty, like that. Might throw one interest bead, just kind of along the way there.
Danielle, I'm thinking about all the beading classes you've taught so far, especially with starting working around on circles and that. It might be nice to keep adding wire as your starting point.
Oh yeah, like on, for example, like those earring hoops that we were using before.
Yeah. Instead of the peyote stitch, we could start with wire wrapped beads.
Oh yeah. Yeah, in the beginning, because we were thinking I had seed beads on the mind, so every project that I could come up with seemed to be a stitching project. And I think this might be like the first class where we haven't used wildfire. No, we use Nymo for some, but yeah, like where we haven't used a thread. It's interesting. I love this technique. It just it's newer to me. I learned it sort of recently. I learned it last year. I had tried wire wrapping, of course, long ago, but this was a special kind of wrap that I just never done. It always looked really hard, and I thought it was going to be one of those things where I was going to get frustrated and waste like lots of wire. But then when I tried it, I was really pleasantly surprised by how easy and forgiving it is. Because see, I made like 4 mistakes just now, and I was able to just push them back in and fix them. You can slide them so they're spread further apart if you need to take up more space, or if you need to take up less space, you can squish them. How are we doing on it? It's 3:40, or well, for me it's 3:49. I think I can keep going a little bit more, unless there's anything else that you guys want to see.
Danielle, I think everyone gets it, and
Okay.
getting some great comments on the sidebar. It would be nice for everyone to see the finished piece when they tune back in for next week, so they know where these components are going.
Yeah, exactly. Let me bring that back over. And I'll talk a little bit more about ideas for next week.
I have a feeling a few people are going to jump ahead and do it before next week.
Yeah, I bet so. And then also, of course, just in case anybody wasn't here for this class, there's a suggested already ready to go component for next week, just in case. But what I had planned for next week is to start with just regular beading wire and attach it, and then just string. And I used some kind of dimensioning. I don't know if this is coming over the camera very well, but it gave it some really cool depth to put an 8 and then an 11 and then an 8. So what I did is I created some like depth and texture along this chain. And this is really gorgeous in person. I don't even know how to share it very well, but I used all just the beads that I had. I just dumped them all out and just started going crazy. And anything that fell into this like color category. I mean, it's got cube beads, shells, pearls from our strands, Rondelle strands, these square shells. Yeah, and so it's beading wire and crimp. And then I got to this part, and I wanted this to be really long, so it would hang, depending on how you're wearing it, it could hang in the front or behind this component. But you guys know with beading wire, if you need to make lots of these and you're making really long strands, you go through your beading wire really fast. And so that's when I discovered the Supple Max. And it was a really cool technique that allows you to use a needle, because with the beading wire, you don't need a needle. You can string all your beads with the beading wire, but you don't have to move it around. I find that harder to do, less pleasant to do for a very long time than to use just a needle to pick up my beads, especially with little seed beads. But so what I did with the Supple Max is I doubled it, over a collapsible eye needle, knotted the end, put it in a clamshell here, and then brought it through and did my stringing. And it has this added bonus of being really super flexible. And it doesn't, you know, like if you were to take the beading wire and really bend it, you're gonna get a little like kink in it. You won't have that happen with this. It's just gonna keep going. You can make it one of those like wrap bracelets with it. So I was gonna spend a lot of time talking about clamshells and mediums, and then also talking about the beading wire a little bit, some other little tricks that I thought of after I made these samples that I'm hoping to share. But yeah, that's it. That's it in a nutshell. And then we'll put them all together. And you can even do a third little choker length one if you'd like. We'll talk about that too. Yeah, and then of course you could always just take your pendant and just throw it on ball chain. So there's another super easy application for what we did tonight. And let's see, it's still got extra time. We've got about 7 minutes. I could show the rest of the classes for the rest of the month, if that might be cool.
I think you should do a sneak peek.
Sneak peek, okay, yeah. So then the next class after that is, this is actually a wrap bracelet, but then it makes a necklace too. It's a beading wire project. It uses size 10 seed beads as like a pseudo knot in between gemstone beads. Use any beads you like, any gemstone beads. And the focus of this class is actually how to get sizing right for a bracelet. And so I'm going to use the design on it board for bracelets to show how you can make this into a 3-wrap bracelet and get that sizing right for most people. What I do in my store is I actually photograph my pieces on that board. I show it on the board with the size written under it, so that somebody looking at my piece on a website would be able to guess if it would fit them or not and know what size to order. And so often I'll make the same design in like 3 or 4 different sizes, but if you're making something like this, you want this part to be on the front of your wrist. So the board helps you with that too. It helps you get the position of all that right. And then, you know, we'll just play with some suede and some different fun ways to close pieces like this and ways to make them adjustable. You could do another loop like that. So that's going to be a really fun class, and we'll have a lot of time to talk about bracelet sizing. And I have lots of jokes to share about times when I've gotten that wrong. So I thought that would be fun. And then of course there's this one, which I talked about a little bit in the beginning, but this is herringbone stitch, and it uses a lot of crystals. And thanks again, Pat, for the heads up. If you guys downloaded the handout before early this week, you might have the old version that doesn't say how many strands to buy. We've updated that now, so you'll be able to see how many strands you might need. Get 3, maybe 4. This one I used about 2.5, about 117 beads. It's 4mm, and again they come from these. Now, if you didn't want to get this whole, you know, strand, there's a bunch of alternatives at Michael's. I found these in 4mm, and there's another color that actually would look really pretty with the black. This is pretty close. This one is called, what is it? It's blue glass luster. That's gonna look amazing too. So I might even make this the one I use in class because it will look great with the turquoise. So yeah, just take a look at their website. If you just type in 4mm rondelle, a bunch of stuff comes up and it'll all work. You could even use a little pearl, anything you like. And then of course our size 8 seed beads. That's the these ends and then in between each of these. And then if you notice at the end here, there's our little wrap that we did tonight. So you can do your little charm. And so that's May. That's May. And so I gotta get June ready. June is, I think June's on the website, but I'm not sure. I haven't checked. So that it's submitted. And it's gonna be fun. We're doing some crochet in June. I'm excited about that. I love crochet. So I had to do a crochet project. It was a must. But yeah, so thank you everyone for being here tonight. I had a really fun time with you guys, and please join us next week, Friday night, same time, to finish.
Danielle,
yeah, go for it.
Sorry, a lot of people are wishing you and each other a happy Mother's Day.
Oh yes, thank you for reminding me. I was joking before class. I forgot it was Mother's Day. The time is going really fast right now, and so I'm just like, so happy Mother's Day, everybody. Happy Mother's Day to you guys. All right, have a great weekend.